My dad tried to humiliate me. He instantly regretted it, petty revenge. My dad, Robert, built this city. Okay, maybe not the city, but he built a good chunk of it. Schools, hospitals, office buildings, if it was made of concrete and steel, chances were Robert and his company, Sterling Construction, had a hand in it. He never let me forget it either. I graduated college with a degree in environmental science, something I was actually passionate about, only to be guilt-tripped into taking a temporary job at Sterling as an assistant project manager. My dad's reasoning: learn the family business, Liam. It's in your blood. My blood apparently needed a serious dose of Prozac to deal with the daily grind of paperwork, site visits that mostly involved fetching coffee, and enduring my dad's relentless critiques. Liam, that's not how you hold a blueprint. You look like you're swatting flies, he'd boom across the construction site, drawing the amused attention of the hard-hatted crew. Or in the office, did you actually approve this invoice? Do you even read these things, Liam? Honestly, my mom, Sarah, bless her heart, tried to mediate. Robert, be nice. He's still learning. But her interventions were always soft, easily brushed aside. My dad was a force of nature, a human bulldozer with a penchant for making me feel about 2 inches tall. Then there was Chloe, my girlfriend. She was the one sane voice in my life, constantly reminding me that I had options. You don't have to stay there, Liam. You're letting him walk all over you, she'd say, her eyes full of concern. You deserve to be happy. The breaking point came at Sterling's 30th anniversary gala. It was a black tie affair at some fancy hotel downtown, filled with investors, clients, and enough backslapping to make me nauseous. I was stuck playing glorified coat check, making small talk with people I didn't know and trying to avoid eye contact with my dad. He cornered me during his speech. He was up on stage, microphone in hand, looking every bit the successful titan of industry. I should have known what was coming. And of course, he said, his voice booming through the ballroom, I wouldn't be where I am today without the next generation of Sterling, my son. Liam, he gestured dramatically towards me. Liam, come on up here. Mortified, I reluctantly walked towards the stage. The room applauded politely, but I could feel the weight of everyone's gaze. He clapped me on the back hard enough to make me stumble. Liam here, fresh out of college, tried to go all green on me, studying environmental science. Can you believe it? My son, a tree hugger, he chuckled, and the audience laughed along nervously. He continued, his tone laced with condescension. But don't worry, folks. I'm teaching him the ropes, turning him into a real man. He's learning that real success comes from building things, not talking about them. He paused, looking at me with a smug expression. He's still got a long way to go, mind you. Almost burned down the coffee machine last week. But hey, at least he shows up to work. Right, eventually, he might even learn to read a blueprint without getting a nosebleed. The laughter this time was louder, more genuine. I stood there, frozen, my face burning with humiliation. I wanted to disappear, to crawl under a rock and never come out. My dad had just publicly emasculated me in front of everyone he knew. That night, sleep was impossible. Chloe held me, whispering words of comfort, but the damage was done. My dad had crossed a line. I couldn't let him get away with it. The next day at work, I was a different person. The quiet, obedient assistant was gone. I was still polite, still did my job, but underneath, a plan was forming. Mark, a project manager who'd always been decent to me, noticed the change. Rough night, huh? He asked, leaning against my cubicle wall. I sighed. You have no idea. I told him everything about the gala, the speech, the years of being belittled. Mark listened patiently, then shook his head. Your dad's a piece of work, Liam. He's been like that for years. Thinks he's God's gift to construction. So what do? I asked, desperation in my voice. Just take it, Mark shrugged. Not if you don't want to, but you gotta be smart about it. Don't go picking a fight you can't win. He's got all the power here. Then how do I win? Mark smiled, a hint of mischief in his eyes. You gotta hit him where it hurts. His ego, his reputation, his wallet, that was the spark. Over the next few weeks, I started paying attention, really paying attention. I went through contracts, invoices, project proposals. I listened to conversations, both in the office and at the occasional company lunch I was forced to attend. I started to see cracks in the facade of Sterling Construction. Shortcuts taken, corners cut, permits overlooked. My dad was obsessed with landing the new City Hall project. It was a huge deal, a legacy project that would cement his place in the city's history. He'd been courting the mayor, greasing palms, doing whatever it took to win the bid. It was all he talked about. I learned that he'd been using cheaper, substandard materials on some previous projects to pad his profits. Materials that wouldn't meet the City Hall's stringent environmental regulations. He was planning on using the same materials again, hoping nobody would notice. This was it, my opportunity. The hardest part was figuring out how to expose him without getting caught. I couldn't just walk into the mayor's office with a stack of incriminating documents. That would be career suicide and probably get me disowned. Then I thought of Brenda, the office manager. She'd been with Sterling for 20 years, seen it all, and knew where all the bodies were buried. She was also notoriously unsentimental and had a dry wit that always made me chuckle. She also hated my dad. One afternoon, I casually stopped by her desk. "Brenda, got a minute?" She looked up from her computer, her expression neutral. "What is it, Liam?" I lowered my voice. "I've been doing some digging about the City Hall project." Her eyes narrowed. "And I think your boss might be cutting some corners." I didn't elaborate, just let the implication hang in the air. Brenda didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she sighed. "Robert's always been a shark, Liam. You're just now figuring that out. I know, but this is different. This could hurt a lot of people." She looked at me, a flicker of something akin to sympathy in her eyes. "What are you planning to do?" I hesitated. "I don't know yet, but I need to find a way to make sure the right people know what's going on." Brenda leaned back in her chair. "You're going to need proof, hard evidence. And you're going to need someone who knows how to get the word out without getting their hands dirty." She paused, then added, almost to herself, "I know a guy." Over the next few days, Brenda quietly supplied me with copies of key documents, invoices, purchase orders, internal memos. She was a master of discretion, moving information without leaving a trace. I felt like I was in some kind of low-stakes corporate espionage movie. I also knew a local investigative journalist, Sarah Jenkins, from a class I had in college. She was hungry, ambitious, and always looking for a big story. I sent her an anonymous email, hinting at potential environmental violations on the City Hall project, and suggesting she look into Sterling Construction's past projects. I included a few encrypted files with some of the key documents Brenda had provided. Then I waited. It was agonizing. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, constantly afraid that my dad would find out what I was up to. Finally, the day arrived. The day my dad was scheduled to make his final presentation to the city council and potential investors. He was beaming, radiating confidence. He even gave me a rare pat on the back. "Today's the day, Liam, today. We make history." I just smiled weakly and mumbled something about hoping it went well. The presentation was held in the city council chambers. The room was packed. My dad was in his element, charismatic and persuasive. He was showing off architectural renderings, talking about the project's innovative design, and promising to deliver the City Hall on time and under budget. Just as he was wrapping up, Sarah Jenkins stood up. "Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "I have a few questions about Sterling Construction's environmental practices." My dad's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Sarah Jenkins, with the City Gazette." I'm not sure I understand what this has to do with anything he said, his voice losing some of its confident bluster. But I would be happy to take questions after I wrap up. "I think these are questions you need to answer now. Are you aware that Sterling Construction has been using substandard, non-compliant materials on several of its recent projects?" The room went silent. My dad's face turned red. "These are outrageous allegations," he sputtered. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Sarah Jenkins wasn't backing down. "I have here invoices, purchase orders, and internal memos that suggest otherwise. Documents that show Sterling Construction knowingly violated environmental regulations to increase its profits." She held up a folder, and I could see copies of the documents Brenda had given me. My dad was visibly sweating. He stammered, tried to deny the allegations, but Sarah Jenkins kept pressing him, citing specific examples and quoting from the documents. The city council members looked stunned. The investors shifted uncomfortably. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension. Finally, the mayor intervened. "Mr. Sterling, I think we need to postpone this presentation. We need time to investigate these serious allegations." My dad's face was a mask of fury. He glared at Sarah Jenkins, then at the city council, then finally his eyes landed on me. He didn't say anything, but I knew. He knew somehow that I was involved. The aftermath was chaotic. The city council launched an investigation. The investors pulled out of the City Hall project. Sterling Construction's reputation was in tatters. My dad was furious. He confronted me in his office, his voice shaking with rage. "Did you do this, Liam? Did you set me up?" I looked him in the eye, trying to appear innocent. "I don't know what you're talking about, Dad. Don't lie to me," he roared. I know you're behind this. You always hated this company. You always hated what I do. That's not true, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I just wanted you to do things the right way. The right way, he sneered. The right way is the way that gets things done. The right way is the way that makes money, he ranted and raved for what felt like hours, accusing me of betrayal, of ruining his life, of being a disappointment. I stood there and took it, feeling a strange mix of guilt and satisfaction. My mom tried to play peacemaker, but it was no use. My dad was too angry, too hurt, to listen to reason. Over the next few weeks, things at Sterling Construction were tense. My dad barely spoke to me. The atmosphere in the office was poisonous. I knew I couldn't stay there much longer. The City Hall project was dead. Sterling Construction was facing lawsuits and investigations. My dad's empire was crumbling. One evening, a few weeks after the presentation debacle, my dad called me into his office. He looked tired, defeated. The bluster was gone, replaced by a weary resignation. "Liam," he said, his voice softer than I'd heard it in years. "I've been thinking about what happened. I braced myself for another lecture, but it didn't come. Maybe I was wrong," he said, his gaze fixed on the floor. "Maybe I pushed you too hard. Maybe I didn't listen to you. I didn't say anything, just waited for him to continue. I'm not saying what you did was right," he said, looking up at me. "But I understand why you did it." He sighed. "I've always been so focused on building things, on making money, that I forgot about what really matters. I forgot about family." He paused, then added almost reluctantly, "I'm sorry, Liam. I'm sorry for everything." I was stunned. I never thought I'd hear those words come out of his mouth. "I appreciate that, Dad," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "But it's going to take more than words to fix things." "I know," he said, "I know, but I'm willing to try." He looked at me, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Maybe we can start over. Maybe we can build something together, something better." I looked at him, at the lines etched on his face, at the vulnerability in his eyes. I knew he wasn't going to change overnight. He was still Robert Sterling, the driven, ambitious businessman. But maybe, just maybe, he was starting to see the world in a different light. "Maybe," I said, a small smile playing on my lips. "Maybe we can." I stayed at Sterling Construction for a few more months, helping to clean up the mess, to rebuild the company's reputation. It wasn't easy, but I felt like I was making a difference. I was using my environmental science background to implement more sustainable practices, to make sure Sterling Construction was doing things the right way. Eventually, I decided it was time to move on. I found a job with an environmental consulting firm, working on projects that aligned with my passions. I was finally doing what I loved, and I was good at it. My relationship with my dad remained complicated. We still had our arguments, our disagreements. But there was a newfound respect between us, a grudging understanding. He'd stopped trying to control me, to mold me into his image. He'd finally accepted me for who I was. Sometimes I'd drive past the City Hall construction site, now being built by a different company. I'd feel a twinge of guilt, a pang of regret. But then I'd remember the gala, the humiliation, the years of being belittled, and I'd know that I'd done the right thing. I'd stood up for myself. I'd found my voice. And I'd finally earned my dad's respect, even if it was the hard way. The petty revenge had tasted sweet, but the real victory was finding my own path.